Good evening, all. Welcome to the City of East Providence Council meeting. This evening, we will be having two sessions. We will start off with the budget, first and foremost, and then we will lead eventually into the regular scheduled council meeting. With that being said, can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So prior to starting with public comment, we're going to jump right into the school budget. Does anyone have any questions or concern with the school budget that was presented to the council at this time?
I do not, Mr. President.
No comments. I think we've talked quite a bit. We had 4 or 5 budget hearings already. I'm good.
Okay. Therefore, with that being said, would anybody like to make a motion?
So we're making votes on these item by item, or?
You don't need to. You can if you want. I just want to be able to, Malcolm and I really need to be able to follow along line by line with any changes, because we need to update the budget live as we go tonight.
Okay. So just do the, yep. So would you like to do that? Yeah, so I'll move to restore the school's full request, which means a restoration of the proposed cut in the mayor's budget of $950K of the school's budget.
Seconded.
Okay. With that being said, we have a motion on the floor at this point in time by Councilman Cahoon to restore the $950,000 back into the school budget. Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes the school budget for this evening. Now we can proceed in a manner. I like to essentially just go in order according to the book that we have here. And this is a public comment again. So with that being said, I'll announce the pages in addition to the department as well.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes.
And it's in line with what you're saying, going in order. The very first page, that, as we discussed in the past, of adding the 0.5% to the homestead exemption, I would like to make a motion that we do not increase the homestead from 13 to 13.5 at this point.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor not to increase, Councilman, not to increase from 13 to 13.5 for homestead? Okay. By Councilman Morato.
I will second.
We have a second by Councilman Cahoon. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Moving right along to the City Council budget on page 18 of the City Council of the fiscal year budget book. There has been some increase to the line items related specifically to legal and audit. Mr. Dillon, would we need to go line item by line item on this? Or can we just discuss the total amount of increase?
You can just discuss the total amount of increase if you wish. We do have sort of the proposed additions in front of us.
Okay.
It's within the agenda. I would recommend, if we needed to change any of these proposed additions, that we hold a motion on those changes, give an opportunity for public comment, and then we can hold a motion on the whole. That will give Malcolm and I believe, the best opportunity to track the line items to get to a final budget ordinance as quickly as possible.
So prior to going in and discussing the budget, I'm going to ask the public to come up and approach the podium. If anyone has any questions, concerns, or anything that they'd like to express at this point in time regarding the City Council proposed budget, please step up to the podium here.
Mr. President?
Yes.
before anyone starts to speak, just so that we apply the same limit to everyone, it would be my request that we keep a hard cap on the 3 minutes this evening. We're just up against a deadline regarding 11:59 tonight, which is uncommon, so I'm being a little overly cautious.
So for those of you who did not hear the Assistant City Solicitor, we're going to keep a hard cap on a 3-minute public comment section up here this evening. So please, if you do approach at any point in time this evening, we'd like for you to keep your comment within 3 minutes.
I'll just swear into it.
Thank you.
No.
No.
Okay, so my name is Dan Landry. I've been up here numerous times, so I won't take more than 3 minutes because I think everybody probably knows what I'm up here for. I'd probably say maybe 6 or 8 years now I've been pushing for a rescue in the Rumford Station. I did try to watch from home the last discussion we had regarding that, and it was cutting in and out, so some of the stuff might have already been discussed, I don't know. But it's disappointing to me in that the data shows that there is a need there. There's always been a need there, but it shows more than ever that there is a need there. To me, sending out an engine every time there's a rescue call makes no sense at all, especially from a cost standpoint. The other thing is, I think at this point we're kind of abusing the mutual aid from Seekonk. I mean, the numbers that were reported the other meeting. If I was Seekonk, I wouldn't come anymore. I mean, we're truly abusing that mutual aid. And talking about pulling a rescue from now Swansea, Somerset, I mean, come on, that is just ridiculous. I mean, you got an emergency situation, and we don't have the proper equipment. And I should say the proper equipment in that station, because we do have 3 reserve rescues. If you go on the website, it actually says we have 3 reserve rescues. So there's no reason why one can't be placed there. And the discussion about having one from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, is also just a stupid statement to make. I mean, people do get sick or have injuries at night and on the weekends. I mean, there needs to be one like there is in every other station we have in this city. And I don't understand why. I think some of it's contractual, and if that's the case, then we need to go back to the union and say, hey, there's a problem here. They need to give up something. I've been up here so many times asking about this. The former fire chief will know. He met with me. I was asked to come to City Hall on my own time. Malcolm, you probably remember, it was back in May. Tim Chapman asked me to come. Mr. Luba was there. The fire chief at the time was there. I was told at the time they were going to do a new fire contract. I didn't ask to go to this meeting. I was told to come to this meeting. So again, I went because I was curious to see what was going to happen. They told me a new contract was going to be put in place. It was going to be far different than anything I've ever seen in any other city or town. Thinking, great, something great's going to happen. We went from a 3-year contract to a 5-year contract and got absolutely nothing for it. Now we're spending more money on this budget for the fire department. Every year it continues to go up and up. And the Rumford residents get nothing for it. Mr. Brittle, I put it back on you because you've been involved in this numerous times. You've been on this council multiple terms. You know, because I've been up here numerous times, previous council is the same thing, and still nothing. That's why I joked. I wasn't here all summer. I didn't come. It's like watching a soap opera. You don't have to come for 2 months and you can turn it back on and catch right up again because nothing happens. But you continually want more money out of my pocket every single year. And we just don't get it. I don't know why there's not more Rumford residents here complaining about it. I venture to guess that most of them don't even know there's not a rescue in that station. There's a special hazards truck in that garage that never leaves. Get that thing out of there and put a rescue in there. It just makes sense. And I don't understand. Nobody has a reason why. Nobody. Year over year, I get up here and ask, and it never gets done. So you can sense the frustration in my voice, and I put it back on you, Mr. Brittle, because you're my councilman.
Yep.
You should be pushing for that, hard and heavy. And you said you have the data. You have the data because I've requested the data year over year.
Mr. President,
it's not on the website.
Down to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Shut me down in 3 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Well,
like I said, I'm up
we
here
already discussed,
every year, same situation.
No, I understand that, and part of the discussion we had during our last meeting was implementing a rescue at that station.
When's it going in?
Well, we got to finalize the budget
We
before
have
it
a
goes in.
rescue?
We got to
It's not a cost situation.
We have to finalize the budget first, so allow us to finalize the
I'll sit
budget.
down before I get thrown out.
Okay, well, then you do that. Again, I'm going to repeat, this is for the city council. Anybody have any questions or concerns regarding the city council budget at this point in time? Please step up to the podium. If not, Malcolm, would you like to read the changes and the additional upgrade to the city council budget?
Yes, there were 3 increases two were transfers. There was $32,175 for audit fees. There was $50,000 that was consulting, which is in that same line. $75,000 for legal. Now, do we talk about the reductions also? If there are any proposed reductions in this one?
I believe you just asked for the increase, any changes, and then the total.
Okay.
If we're going to take a vote on the department-by-department budget, don't we want the full number?
Yeah.
The actual number?
Yes.
Okay. So then those three, and those are all three of those are proposed transfers.
Correct.
And those three transfers equal
100.
$157,175,
Correct.
which when added to the original proposed budget of $26,597 equals,
Hold on 1 second.
So what do you have for total? Do you have the tally on all of these, Malcolm, at this time,
Do I have a total of?
with the increases to the council budget?
Mr.
Come
President,
up with,
it's my understanding that the present version of the budget ordinance as presented includes all of these figures that we see in front of us. So that these numbers are correct, so long as these numbers do not change. Any change to these numbers as posted to the agenda needs a corresponding change in the budget ordinance.
Okay,
So,
I have it here.
so long as there's no change, we don't need to update the numbers. But if there is a change to any of these items, then we do need to update the budget ordinance.
So as it stands right now, based on the subtotals that I have, is $157,175. That's-
those are the three items which would have been added on to the original proposed budget of $26,597,
Okay.
which comes out to $183,772, if my math is right. Yep.
183.
772. Now, from that 183,772, the council identified reductions in previous meetings, specifically a reduction to the stipend line, taking that from $33.60 to $0. So if the council would like to hold to that, would be 183,772 minus 33.60, which I have 184.12.
That's correct.
Minus 183,772 minus 33,000?
3,360, taking the total proposed budget or the total council budget to 180,412.
Okay.
That would be our number.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. Solicitor, we have this list with the transfers, the additions. Is there a list with the subtractions? Such as Councilman Cahoon just listed, but he's doing his own math. Do we have a
I don't have a list.
tally list of that?
Subtractions, no. This is, the advertisement requires proposed increases, so the advertisement doesn't require the proposed subtractions. It's my understanding that the complete budget ordinance includes all of the proposals that we've had up to this point. So that would include the subtractions as well, which, in terms of the final budget ordinance. What we don't know is if there will be any changes to the proposed increases this evening. Malcolm, can you confirm that?
But by the end of the night, we need to agree upon that final
The budget
number.
ordinance that you have there just included the increases, which were for, that were in the,
So
on the agenda
we
for
have to go
tonight.
department by department
So-
to make sure it's all correct.
Right. Well, I have a list of all of the proposed reductions and transfers. I think that's what you're looking for.
Okay. Yes.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Those have not been presented, so only the additions were proposed for tonight's meeting, at least for the advertisement. So in that ordinance you have are just the original budget plus the increases.
So none of the reductions are included within this proposed budget?
No.
So the numbers won't reflect what the
All right.
bottom line is.
So I would suggest that we proceed by doing all of the proposed increases, identify what all of those are, then the reductions, because we need this final budget ordinance to match up.
So by my math, that takes the council budget to 180,412 with everything that we've discussed so far. And do we want to do a department by department vote, Mr. President? Is that something we want to lock in, or do we want to get to the end, or
I think we should vote in
department by department?
department by department
So
and close it out.
Move to approve the city council department budget of $180,000 and $180,412 for FY20.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Moving right along. Excuse me, moving right along to page 21, section 125, the mayor's office proposed budget.
So in speaking with the mayor has pointed out to me, if you take a look at last year's mayoral budget or approved mayoral budget, which was a 10-month mayoral budget, and you were to do the math for a 12-month, to prorate that budget effectively for 12 months, the amount that you would come to is approximately $473,000. We, in previous meetings, have identified deductions from the proposed amount of $511. We talked about reducing that by $77,500. The mayor has indicated that a budget of $463,000 for the mayor's office would be sufficient to operate the mayor's office for the term of FY20. Basically what he's asked is that instead of our proposed reduction of $77,500, we would actually reduce that reduction by $45,000. So a reduction of $32,500 instead of a reduction of $77,500. I indicated to the mayor that I would present that to the council for discussion. So I have presented it to the council for discussion.
And again, I want to remind the public that this is a public hearing, so if anybody wishes or chooses to come up to the podium, approach the podium, speak for or against this, please come up.
Mr. President,
Discussion at the
I'd
council.
ask Councilman Cahoon, so the key here is going to a full year's numbers, 12 months now, rather than the 10 months. And that would clear it up more, at least to me.
Yeah, the key was that if you just did the math,
Right.
10-month versus 12, it would have come to 473. Mayor indicated to me that 463 would be sufficient. 463 would be sufficient to run the office.
So the last number that I had, the budget had come down to 447.24, is that correct?
Actually, 439,723.
439,723, and now we're looking for an increase of $23,000. So my dilemma with this budget moving forward, and I think we've discussed this at length, we've made cuts to almost every department because we're not looking to raise taxes in the city. We know we have things that we need to pay for, including a school bond that will be coming, that's going to cost the taxpayer a significant amount of money. I don't feel, and though I can understand and appreciate the mayor's office and his proposal, much like the rest of the departments and their proposals, I think we have to be a little tight and fiscally responsible moving forward every year and really look at all of our line items and the budget as a whole, because again, as we've heard, our budgets every year, every department adds on to what they already had the year before. And I know some of that is contractual, and I understand that we have to meet those obligations, but not everything is. I actually was looking to further cut the budget with reductions because, again, I'm trying to get that number below what the proposed 2.6 is. And to do that, with restoring the almost $1 million to the school department, which they deserve and need, we have to, as a council, make up not only that million, but we also, if we want to cut, we have to come up with another million to cut, or close to reduce the rate by at least 1% if we're looking to be under 2% for a tax increase. So in doing that, I'm looking to cut across the board more. And not really picking and choosing. I think we've identified areas already in the budget that we wanted to cut per each department, and now I'm just looking to go a step further and take another new amount out, and then the department can do as they please with what the council has approved. So my proposed budget for the mayor's office, if the council so chooses, was actually to reduce it another, I believe, $50,000, bringing that total. And keep in mind, everybody works very hard, and I understand that, and we try our best to reward that when it comes budget time. But at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers, and we can only work with what we have. And so everybody has to make sacrifices when you have businesses and populations that don't have the capability of paying high taxes year after year after year. So my duty is really to my ward, the citizens that live in it, and the rest of the community who needs to make these financial decisions to stay in East Providence. So I'm not trying to push people out of East Providence. We want to keep them in East Providence. So keeping our taxes down is the only way to do that.
So your cut of $50,000 will come from what line item? Would that come from the original proposed amount, 511? Would it come from, I know Councilman Morato had $439,000. Initially, early on, I had $464,000. Do you have specifics, or you're just saying across the board?
The bottom line, yeah. Okay. I mean, the mayor can work with the budget as he pleases.
And from what line item, from what total are you cutting that from, the 511?
No, so we've already identified.
439?
Correct.
So it would be 77,500 that was cut originally, and then you propose another 50 on top of the 77.5, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that would bring it down to 383,724.
Through the chair.
Yes, please.
The total amount, it was originally 77.5. It's now 83,567. The reason for is some of the reductions also had reductions in salary, benefits, pension. And I didn't have that number that first time, so we said we're going to take X amount out of.
So what is that number again, Malcolm?
$83,567.
So then what did that give us for a total?
Current total I have is 427,657.
427,657.
657. And that was with the proposed council changes from before.
I support Councilwoman's proposal of cutting another additional 50,000. Councilwoman Sousa's proposal.
Okay. Mayor?
Mr. President, members of the council, I'm all about being fiscally responsible, but I'm also about providing services to our community and being able to run an office efficiently. The cuts that were made were severe to begin with, and when we look at what was budgeted in fiscal year 19, we were at about $472,000. What I had approached the council about was looking at restoring some money back to the budget so that we would be at 463, where actually we'd be coming in $10,000 below what was originally budgeted for our office. I think it's only right that we continue having an office that has proper staffing so that we can do what we need to do to provide services to our community, to answer questions of the council, to service constituents. It's an eye-opening job when you're sitting there and you're doing it and you realize how much has to get done. And how it was done before with so few people in the office is why we had a lot of the things not get done that needed to get done for the city. So I would strongly ask your support of restoring the budget to 463,290.
So my original number that I have for my workshop was 464,224, and that goes to reducing the part-time pay for 25,000 to 15,000 economic development, reducing the travel from 5,000 to 2,500, and general office expense from 8,000 to 4,000, office equipment from 7,500 to 4,000, and dues and fees from 6,000 to 2,000. So during that time of discussion, I had 464,224. And I do have the Councilman Morato's of 439,723 as well.
So was it 439? Or the other number?
At the time of the budget, when we had discussion, you had 439,723, and I had 464,224.
Did we take into account the salary line, Mr. President? Because there were significant increases in that line.
I think we were cutting the 2% across the board, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. So I think for our record, what I'm tracking is that the council had previously, from the mayor's 511,224, the council had previously identified $77,500 worth of proposed reductions. To Malcolm's point, those proposed reductions included salaries and benefits, which brought that $77,500 to $83,567 in proposed reductions. So I think the starting point for tonight, for this discussion, is 511,224 minus 83,567.
427,657.
And that is the number that Malcolm said is 427,657. I think that's where we started before I made my pitch, and Councilwoman Souza presented her thoughts as well.
And again, this is a public hearing. Anybody have any choice of words, please step up to the podium. If not, we will continue this discussion and close it out shortly. So, Councilman Cahoon, what was your final number that you came up with?
The number that you had identified to date
yeah.
was 427,657.
Yes, but I'm referencing your number that you're coming up with.
So the number that I referenced earlier was the number that the mayor just referenced of 463,290. I said 463, corrected me on the 290. 463,290. Councilwoman Souza's proposed reduction, I believe, Councilwoman Souza, if I've got it right, would be the 50,000 reduction on top of the 427,657, which would result in 377,657. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I was again at the 464,224.
I propose, seeing that additional monies were taken out of the salary, bringing it from 77.5 to 83,567. I propose reducing, countering that with 40,000 reduction instead of 50. Try to offset some of the costs. I don't know if you agree with that.
387.
That's
Instead of 50,000, reducing it by an additional 40,000 on top of the 83,567.
387,657.
So that'll bring the total for that budget 387,657. Is that correct?
So those are the two numbers we're looking at now, 387,657 or 463,290. Is that correct?
I had the 464,224 from my workshop.
Oh, okay, 464. So it's three numbers.
So, yeah, it's three. I mean, I'll even go down to the 463,290.
Was public comment closed?
No.
Public comment, we remain open till the entire, can we close it for this particular department, or does it have to continue to remain open throughout?
You can have a motion that the public hearing has been held as to a specific item, but I would just encourage that you make that request if anyone else wants to speak to it one more time first. And then you can close the public hearing for that particular item.
Okay. Okay, so with that being said, anyone wishing to come up and speak for or against this budget, please step up now. Otherwise, I will close the public comment for this particular section, 125, the mayor's office, on page 21. Okay, with that being said, or nothing being said at all, I'm going to close public comment for section 125, the mayor's office. And as a council, we may proceed with a vote at this point in time.
So, given the discussion, I will move to establish the mayor's budget for FY20 at 463,290. Leave that up to the council.
So what are the two options for, is this going to be a vote or?
Yes.
I've just made a motion.
That's a motion.
Mr. President, I'd request a second before further discussion.
Okay.
Mr. President. Mr. President, for discussion, I second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, Councilman Cahoon, to have the mayor's budget at $463,290, seconded by Councilman Rodrick. Roll call vote, please.
Discussion.
Or
So I'm not entirely comfortable with that number. I will counter it. I mean, if the council, I'm still holding steadfast to the 427,657. I think that's a more appropriate number. Again, it's everybody's going to have to endure some cuts that they were not expecting, and this is just what has to happen for us to meet the needs of the community and be thinking about the money that we need to pay with the school coming down the line and giving the school the funding that it needs. So I make a motion. Can I make a? No, we
There
have
is a
to kill the
motion already
motion.
on the floor.
So the two, I mean, the best that I can, support would be 440. But the two, the 463, 290, I'm not in favor of.
Okay, so we do have a motion right now. Well, I'm going to keep it open for further discussion at this point in time.
I concur with either way. We do need to tighten it a little bit. I've been saying this from the beginning, especially with the school. We don't know what the school's going to cost us per resident, and we don't know what the sewer rates are also going to cost every household. So, and we're doing this throughout for every department. So I concur with the 440, if that's the way we're going to go.
Okay.
I mean, for us to keep this budget at a certain increase, keeping that increase low so everybody can afford their taxes, we have to make the cuts. And, it's every department. The council made cuts in their department where we cut our stipend. Did our budget increase? Yes, but only because we're transferring services from another department into our department. We're not increasing our the budget by any means so that we can have more money. We're just reallocating funds so that we can use it for services that we as a council need, just like other departments need for their services. So again, I'm going to be looking to cut across the board in all departments because I'm not going to approve a budget that's 2.6 increase. I'm not. I'm going to tell you right now that I'm not approving that budget. So unless we can get down to we can make cuts tonight for close to $2 million overall, I'm not approving the budget tonight.
So, Mr. Brito, and I'm sorry, having great respect for Councilwoman Souza's thoughts on this, certainly, and certainly understand that, she may wish to vote the way that she wishes to vote. I know that we're going to have differences of opinion on the council, and I do think it's crucial, as Dylan said, that we come to a resolution on this. May I request that the council take a vote, and if the council were to vote no, if there's another discussion at that time, then so be it.
So we do have a motion on the floor. We have a second on that motion as well. The motion is for the amount of $463,290, seconded by Councilman Rodriguez. If there's no further discussion at this point in time, I'll move for a vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Nay.
Councilwoman Souza.
Nay.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes Section 125, the Mayor's Office. We're going to proceed right on to page 23, Section 200, City Clerk's Office at this time. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. This is a public comment, so anyone chooses to step up to the podium to speak for or against this budget, please feel free to step up now. Otherwise, I'm going to open up the floor for conversation with the council. Doesn't look like anyone's going to be coming up soon. So with that being said, any objections or from
Mr.
previous to the
President,
last conversation we had regarding the city clerk's office?
Mr. President, this only reflects subtractions, right? There were no additions.
That's correct. There are no advertised additions.
No advertised additions on the list. We talked about subtractions. Unless anything's changed, I'm prepared to just move forward as we discussed prior.
Any further discussion from the council at this time?
I would make the motion, but because we don't have the list of, I'd have to get the numbers, I guess, from Director Moore, because we only have the list of the advertised additions.
Correct.
I have scratch numbers that I added up at those hearings, but I'm not prepared to say that's official. So would a motion be in order without knowing that number? Or?
You can request a number from the finance
No, I
director.
think we should have a number.
I can give you the total and a breakdown. The total is $60,371. If you want it by line item,
No, that's
No.
okay.
okay.
So
Which brings the budget to $668,171.
I think that the total amount was increased by $50,000. I think the council had previously discussed reducing the printing and binding line from $50,000 to $0. I think that might be missing from, with the idea that the preservation fund could be used to support that item.
I believe that number that Mr. Moore just mentioned, that is with that reduction, that 50,000.
Includes the 50.
It does?
The preservation fund, bringing it down to that 668.
Doing quick math again. 4,
60,000.
7.
Could you repeat that, Malcolm? Is it 668?
171.
171.
171. Yeah.
Starting off with 728,542.
Okay.
Again, this is a public comment. If nobody chooses to come up at this time, I'm going to close public comment for the Section 200 City Clerk's proposed budget.
So I'm sorry, Malcolm, I didn't mean to clobber your number if I'm incorrect.
A little bit on salaries, $1,400. Pension, $308. FICA, $111. $2,000 on purchase professional. $5,000 on, $2,000 on professional development. $5,000 purchase professional. $500 on postage. $50,000 printing and binding, and $1,000 general office expense.
I agree, that's everything we talked about from my notes. And then what was that number again associated with that, please, Malcolm?
The reductions are
Yes.
$60,371.
52. Which would bring us down by my numbers to 668,171.
Correct.
Mr. President, I would move approval, which shows an overall reduction in the office. The total would be $668,171.
Okay, so before I accept that motion, I'm going to close public comment for the Section 200 for the city clerk's office. We have a motion on the floor to accept the $668,171 by Councilman Roderick. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second that.
And we have a second by Councilman Morado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
So, Mr. President, if I may, to Councilwoman Souza's earlier point and her wanting to make sure that we keep an eye on what that overall number is, do we want to keep a tally on what the rolling deductions are?
That would be
by
nice, yes, so
department?
when we, yes. So Malcolm, would you be keeping a rolling tally of that, of those
Yes.
deductions? Okay, thank you. All right, we are now on page 25, section 350, 350, Law Department, proposed budget.
I don't believe you touched anything in this department.
I
No.
have no changes in that.
No changes? This is public comment. Anyone from the comment chooses to or wishes to come up and speak for or against this proposal, please step up now, or otherwise I will close public comment. Anyone from the public choosing to speak for or against this proposed budget, please step up to the podium. Okay, public comment is closed for Section 350 Law Department. At the pleasure of the council, any discussion at this time? If not, would anyone like to make a motion?
Based on the approved numbers, again, I'm not sure what Malcolm has for the numbers for this department. The last recorded in our workshops, I have 353,916. Do you have something similar?
I've got 376,852,
Yeah.
which I believe is what was in.
I have the proposed amount as well, the 376,852. I don't know if any,
That's the same number I have.
Oh, okay.
Me too.
I think I had made some, did we not have a discussion?
I think we had a discussion about some transfers, but then we ended up keeping
Things the way they
things the way they are.
The last transfer.
we transferred, if I'm not mistaken, legally from miscellaneous, so it wasn't actually coming from the Law Department.
So with that, if there's no other council discussion, I'll move the total of $376,852
Okay.
in the Law Department.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Roderick. Does anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilman Morado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next page, page 27, section 450, the canvassing authority. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this budget, please step up to the podium. Again, this is a public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this proposed budget, please step up to the podium. If not, public comment is closed at this time. Thank you. Moving right along with the council.
Mr. President, Councilwoman, did you get any replies to your inquiries? I know you were doing some further research.
I did not.
Did not?
I did
So
not.
what are
Nobody
you
reached out.
thinking? What do you?
I'm still of the mind that I am not in favor of a full-time position. I think if they're looking for efficiency in the office and saying that they need bodies in the office, then another part-time in my opinion, serves the office better, and from a fiscal point of view, it serves the budget better. So I stand to deny.
Do you have the numbers on what that, or maybe Malcolm would?
So the numbers to increase to a full-time would be $61,000, including benefits, $61,805.45 for year one, step one, and then would subsequently increase with each step along with the rest of the benefits. Currently, the part-time is averaging about $18,000. I would say increase the we can't increase. Well, we did advertise for the 61, so we could allocate out of the 61 a portion to go into the part-time budget for them to be able to get another part-time person. And I would say for probably the same, maybe 20,000 out of the 61 to go to a part-time. And again, in my opinion, I've discussed this multiple times. I've let the canvassing board know. So if they were really concerned and it was something that was a major issue, one, I think that they would have reached out to me, who had the questions and inquiries, which is fine if they reached out to a fellow councilman, but I'm the one with the questions and concerns, so it would have been respectful if they had reached out to me to voice their concerns or push for their want. Having not heard anything from anyone and going to the office and speaking with them again and again, not have received any comments, then it must not have been that important, and it was more of a wish list than a necessity.
No, I agree with you. I did get a call, but nothing specific. It was more of an inquiry of me. But I agree that, you had the initial questions and concerns, and I would agree with what you've said. I'm just a little confused on what the bottom line number is changing to, if anything. Are you saying realign within that total? So the total stays the same?
So we proposed, we in our advertisement, we proposed an increase of potentially 61,000 benefits. So we can leave it status quo and just the proposed budget that they had, and they'll stay at FTE of 2.5. Or if, we want to listen and adhere to their concern and compromise and give them an extra body at a part-time rate, I'm inclined to do so. But again, I'm not inclined to give a full-time position.
Well, we did discuss the last meeting as well as eliminating that part-time pay for $15,000. I see that I have it zeroed out. So
right.
So that would have to be restored back in.
Well, it's in the budget. It's in the overall.
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes.
You had discussed making certain reductions. However, for tonight, the only thing that was put in were the additions.
Right.
So right now, that 15 part-time is still there. You had talked about taking 15 out of part-time, 1,000 out of overtime.
Eliminating the
15 out of special election.
Yep.
Right. Those would all be calculated tonight.
Do you think, going back to your point, Councilwoman Souza, we had advertised 61,805 and change, right? 61,805,
Yep.
45. If we were then to say, instead of approving the full-time position, understanding that if we're approving a part-time position, we're not approving likely benefits and, right, all the pension stuff that goes along with that. Do you feel that instead of 61,805 something, that 25,000 would be an appropriate number, or do you think that the number is lower than that?
For an overall part-time, you mean?
Yeah.
Or an individual?
For an overall part-time.
An overall part-time and leaving I think that sounds 25 to 30, I think is fine. Because if the current part-time's at 15 and you add another part-time, then it would be 30, and then they still have leeway for overtime. Would the case arise that they would need to, they still have some leeway with that. Again, if you were looking at productivity, and that's what they were talking about, being productive, then having an extra body, so that way if somebody's out, if somebody's on vacation, 3 bodies is better than 2 bodies, and vice versa. So that's my proposal.
So if we use a number of 25, an increase of that 261,103 of 25,000 instead of 61,805, an increase of 25,000 would bring that to 286,103. Now, I'll point out that the council also identified reductions in that budget on a line by line, and I think that we should apply those to that 286,103 line for us to get to where we discussed.
Correct, Councilman. So that would be a reduction in line item 51201 by $1,000. And then a reduction in line 54,000, which would eliminate 15,000.
That's the special election?
The special election, correct.
And that's all I would add.
Yep, and that would bring us to a total of 270,103.
So can I also point out that there was also a line in here for part-time pay, and we had agreed to reduce that part-time pay from 15K, to Mr. Brito's point, to 0, in order to then increase by the 61,103. So do we now also need to reduce that other line of part-time pay?
I think we're looking for a combined part-time pay line item.
Okay, so then the number that we have, the 271,103, you feel is the correct number?
Yes, it sounds, if the numbers that we just went over.
Yep.
I'm off 1,000.
You're off 1,000?
I've got 270,103. The only change is I've got 20.
That's what I have,
Okay.
270,103.
103.
The only changes, we had a 25 to regular salaries. We decreased overtime by 1,000, and we removed special election 15,000.
So the 25 would actually go to the part-time, not the regular salary. And we were taking out the 2% for department heads.
There's no, they're all.
They're all regular,
all
okay,
union
under contract.
I could break, I think you'd have to leave it in regular salaries for right now.
Okay, wherever it's supposed to go, you would know better.
Mr. President?
Yes.
May I ask a question? I'm just trying to make sure that, I support Councilwoman Souza and her position on this. The fiscal year 19 estimated year-end actuals for the part-time position, right now we're running high. We're like 22,000. So in previous years, in fiscal year 18, we were at 17,466 on the overtime. So if we're looking to have another part-timer at the same rate, or maybe less, I don't know what the council requires or would like, I would imagine that overtime, that part-time would have to double. So if we're looking, it was proposed at 15,000, but the actuals probably should have been a little bit higher, because if you look at the actuals, they've been running a little bit higher.
Well, I think the, Mr. Mayor, the proposed 25 would then even it out, because then it could give 5, it'd be 20/20.
So 25 overall, or 25 plus the 15?
25 plus the 15.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear on that. 25 plus the 15.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So then I still think that brings us back to the number that we had discussed, which was 270,103. Yes?
Correct.
And that means about 9,103 above what was originally requested?
9,000 even.
9,000 even.
9,000 even, okay.
Okay, public comment is closed at this time. Any further discussion? If not, would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Brito, I'll move to approve 270, a canvassing budget of $270,103 for FY20.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon for $270,103. Anyone like to second that motion? Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Next section is section 260 on page 29, which is the finance proposed budget. That's 260, page 29 for the finance proposed budget.
Malcolm, given that we had, can we start with you, given that we had a proposed salary reduction to the proposed salary line, and that calculation gets a little fuzzy, I know that we had a few other reductions in here to include the transfer.
Correct.
Can you tell us what you're tracking? And then we'll-
A total difference of $35,360, broken out salaries, $2,491. These are all reductions. MERS, $529, which is pension. FICA, $165. And then under purchase professional, the audit for $32,175. So the total reductions are $35,360, bringing it down to $730,595.
Can you repeat that number again? The final bottom line, I'm sorry.
730,595.
All right, that's exactly what I got. Thank you.
And there are no advertised additions again. This is just reductions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak for or against this budget, please step up to the podium. Otherwise, I'm closing public comment. Public comment is closed at the pleasure of the council. It appears at this time we have $730,595. Anyone oppose that amount?
Mr. President, I would move approval of the amount $730,595, which again continues the process of reductions, not additions.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Proceeding on to page 31, section 270, tax collector's office. Page 31, section 270, tax collector's office.
I show no changes in the mayor's budget.
I know there was a discussion at one point in time for purchase of professional service being reduced from $30,000 to $20,000 is what I have on my notes. And that was the only change that I see.
I also had in my notes, Mr. President, software technology down to $5K from $10,000.
Anyone from the public like to comment?
Mr. President?
Yes.
On the, I could be wrong, on my recollection, I didn't have any notations on any cuts here. On the purchase of professional services, fiscal year 17, we spent $26,000. 18, we spent $23,000. And this year, we're looking at $49,000. So to reduce that from 30 to 20 could be a hardship. And I would ask Malcolm to look into if he can access that database to see exactly what that money was spent on. I know that the department has been running on the higher end over 20,000, at least over the last 3 years. So,
And it looks like a lot of that is going for collections.
okay, so we have to pay people to process the collections process, and is that also for people who are behind on their payments?
That's what it mainly is.
Okay.
It goes to a law firm for collection. And I believe, as I said, on the collections, what we get is, we said you owe us $100, and let's say there was $20 of interest. Well, we'd get our principal of $100, and we get, I think, 25% of the interest. I think that's how the individual gets paid.
In addition to the services that we pay, like a flat fee?
There's no, I think it's upon collection, and then he would get 75% of the interest. So we get 25% of the interest and the principal amount.
And what was the other line you had talked about?
Technology and software.
Technology and software.
We've been running pretty low, and if I'm not mistaken, in the capital budget, the finance department has asked in multiple requests for software.
Malcolm, can you just check and see if that's any recurring licensing fees that we have to pay?
I'm looking at the current year, and the only thing I see right now in technology lease is for the copier. And I got 4 payments totaling about $4,700.
So that fits right in with the 5.
Yeah. The last year, I'll check, it was $9,800. I don't know why. I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I could ask the director, so again, there are no advertised additions. Do you by chance have an official count from the budget hearings of subtractions or cuts?
What, so far?
No, just the tax collector's office.
Oh,
We're not adding anything, I see, right? There's nothing here on the proposed advertised additions.
yes, the 19 budget was $740,000, and current proposed is $578,000.
So unless we want to cut that technology software or the professional development, other than that, it would be pretty much as proposed, which is a decrease from last year.
So I'll make a motion with the 2 indicated cuts of tax collector 270 for a proposed budget of $553,121.
Where's your other cut? I have,
The 20 for the professional services and the 5 for the technology software, given that they've requested capital.
you're cutting 20 out of the 30, or you're cutting 10 out of the 30?
Right, you
So it
said
should
it was going to be 20.
Because I have 563,121. That will be cutting 10 from professional services and 5 from technology software.
That's correct, Council President.
So 563,
121.
121.
And that's Councilwoman Souza's motion.
Yes.
I will second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor for the tax collector's overall budget be reduced from $578,121 to $563,121.
Council President, I'd like to retract my motion. I wanted to note that the 2% increase in the department, if it applies, not be applied.
No, they're all union in
Okay.
that department.
Thank you.
So as it stands, is the $563,121. We have a motion by Councilwoman Souza. Anyone second? Seconded by Councilman Cahoon. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could be the bearer of bad news.
Please.
I just kind of have my eyes on the fact that we have 2 meetings scheduled this evening. I don't know if there are any members of the public here for that second meeting. I'm also trying to consider the pace which we're currently moving at and the fact that we still have, I believe it's roughly 20 other items to get to. I don't know that we're going to get to that second meeting in a timely fashion. We can continue all of those docket items by recessing this meeting, opening the other meeting, voting to continue all of those items to a date certain. That way we don't need to re-advertise. Then we can adjourn that meeting and return to this meeting. That's the procedure we would need to go through in order to continue the regular meeting agenda so that we don't have to deal with any of that tonight. And then I do want to reiterate that we need to have a completed final budget ordinance by 11:59. So Malcolm and I think, would like a little bit of breathing room if we could wrap up sometime before then so that we can get that final budget language done.
Mr. President, I move to recess the current meeting at this time.
Okay. I have a
Second.
motion on the floor to recess this meeting.
Is it possible, I mean, we have, if I could just make this comment, we do have, it's open to the public, but is there any way to, I mean, we already discussed these items at length. Is it any way to just move, when we do reconvene for this part, and just move forward instead of, being interrupted every 5 minutes? Just moving forward with what we already have and what we've already discussed. I don't feel a need that this needs to be re-explained again.
Well, we don't have to explain it, but it is a public hearing, so...
The public is fine.
Okay.
I get that. But yeah, I just feel that it's, every step of the way, we're right back to having to have explanations, and I really feel that we don't need that. We already did that at length.
Well, it's at the pleasure of the council. If you choose to do so, we don't have to.
What would you eliminate? What is it you're trying to eliminate, Councilman? I'm not...
Well, I'll be blunt about it. I mean, we already had the mayor explain his position on every one of these line items. Why do we need to hear it again? I feel like this is being a filibuster. We've already been there. We've already explained this at length. Now with this decision time, that's it. We don't have to reiterate and rehear everything as to why and was increase and so on and so forth. I mean, we do have council procedures under Rule 5 where we have to take an unanimous vote to allow that to happen. So if that's the route we have to go, then that's the route that I would like to take, through the chair.
Well, one problem is it's helpful that we have a list of all the advertised additions, but I don't have a list of any of the cuts that we discussed for 4 or 5 nights beforehand.
Right,
So
that makes a big
that's what's
issue.
dragging this meeting along. So we have to keep turning to Director Moore
Malcolm,
to find out how are we going to vote if we don't have the
make some
numbers.
copies and bring it real quick, if you don't mind.
I don't know.
If we just give him a minute. Mr. President, I just wanted to address the council real quick. On the docket meeting, there's some people who are here to speak on a particular docket item that traveled from out of state, and they were here today to speak on those items. If you're going to reschedule, I would hope that you would be able to reschedule like tomorrow or something, because they're here at considerable expense to speak on those docket items tonight.
Is it not a presentation, your docket items? I know we have the TIF, and I know we have the lease extension as well. Are those the only two that we have at this point in time?
The TIF item we have some people who've traveled from other parts of the country to be here to speak on that.
So, I mean, at the pleasure of the council, if we choose to have them come up very briefly and quickly and speak, we can reconvene. And then with that being said, then I'll second a motion with Councilman Morato with moving this right along. We already had this discussion, and we talked about it. It is a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion and a second to recess right now. So we're technically in a discussion regarding the motion to recess.
Okay.
I would encourage that we have a vote on the motion to recess, and then we can open the other meeting.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second on the motion, and roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye.
You now have the authority to call to order the 7 o'clock meeting.
Okay. Once again, good evening and welcome to the City Council, East Providence. I am now going to call into session the regular scheduled meeting. At this point in time, I will tell you we will proceed with the TIFs and the lease agreement, and then we'll come right back into reconvening for the docket item.
Mr. President, I request that we have a motion to take those items out of order.
Okay.
Make a motion to move forward the presentation of the TIF in section Section C. Well, that's the Live Nation, number 3, to move that up, and then,
We could bring up Live Nation right now because that is in the presentation, if I'm not mistaken. All that is
No,
an
it's a
extension, is a resolution. So Councilwoman, you want to proceed with that resolution?
Sure.
Do I have-
President, I think the motion on the floor, though, is to change the order, and I would second that motion.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. So rather than have someone come up, Councilwoman, you want to just go through what you need to go through, and then we can proceed.
Sure. So Live Nation, as everybody knows, has been in a lease agreement with the City of East Providence for over 3 years. They've done wonderful things in our community. We've had phenomenal ballpoint concerts that start from the spring to the end of the summer. Many of you have attended those, and they've been an asset to the community, and we've had a wonderful relationship and partnership with them. This, as we know, that they have purchased some property, and they're looking to build a permanent place here in the city for continued events and concerts, but they do, in that time frame, while they undergo the land surveying and all that is involved with developing the property that they've purchased, they're asking for an extension on their lease. So that is what the proposed resolution is before the council, is to continue the lease agreement as previously proposed in the first 3 years, so that they can continue providing our community with the wonderful entertainment that they have.
And this is an extension for 1 year.
Correct.
Okay.
I second that motion, as
Okay.
read.
Councilman Gorham, we have a quorum. Sure. No, they're not going to speak.
That's okay.
Roll
Yeah,
call.
we have a quorum.
We have a motion. We have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Absent.
Absent.
Absent. Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to continue on very quickly. This presentation, I take it as quickly you all would want to get out of here as well. You had a lot of practice at this.
Mr. President,
Yes,
can we just identify which agenda item this is?
I'm looking for it now.
What is it?
So it's adopting and amending East Providence Waterfront Special Development District Tax Increment Financing Plan, the Amendment Plan Project, and authorizing the insurance of bonds to finance certain public infrastructures and public improvements necessary to connect with the Unical site project.
Thank you.
It's on the 8th, I believe.
Which is on the fourth page from the beginning. You may proceed.
All right. My name is Monty McKillop. I'm here representing Chevron and the Chevron Business and Real Estate team. I wanted just that you can see the slide presentation. We understand you've got a time constraint, so I'll be very quick. It's an application for the TIF has been made. There's an ordinance that's been being introduced. If we go to the next slide, you know, the fundamental goal of our plan is to ensure that these currently underused properties are once again redeveloped, and they become a vital economic resource for your state and provide you with tax money. The vision principles of the waterfront district, which is on the next slide. I probably don't need to remind you of any of these. Bringing people to the waterfront, generating new jobs, expanding the tax base, creating a regional destination, implementing a mixed use and sustainability. That's what this plan does. That's what we're asking you to affirm in what we're doing here tonight. If you can move to the next slide. We're going to go through 13 slides in 2 minutes here. Just some pictures here for you, for your enjoyment of what it looked like before, what it looks like today. Big difference. The tanks are gone. And then tomorrow, what we hope it will look like in the future. If you could go to the next slide, please. whenever you have a chance, you can start moving to the next one. But basically, our proposed development contemplates 115 apartment units, restaurant space of 43,500 square feet, and 150 key hotel. We're bringing to the waterfront, 400-seat waterfront amphitheater that the public would have access to it, a 5,600 square feet waterfront public plaza, 58,000 square feet of maintained landscape, 9,500 square feet of waterfront terrace and gardens, 400 feet of public walkway around Bold Point. We're providing public access to parking at the waterfront with subsurface parking, continuing to the extension of Waterfront Drive past Tequaton, extending the utilities, extending the existing bike path, relocating a petroleum pipeline that will allow further development on the site, generating an estimated 228 to 318 permanent jobs, 384 to 624 temporary jobs, and probably one of the most important things, providing flood protection for the area. So tax increment financing is a tool, and it's a tool we're asking you to allow us to employ. The tax increment financing, or TIF, is used of projected increased tax dollars for an anticipated development to fund the site area and to provide incentives to developers, which in Rhode Island means property taxes for the city. And with that being said, I want to introduce Keenan Rice, who's going to come up here and talk about some of the specifics, the last 5 slides, so we're more than halfway done.
Good evening, President, members of the council. Thank you for giving us a few minutes this morning to go over this, or this evening to go over this presentation. This previous slide that was skipped is what is tax increment financing. Tax increment financing is simply financing that's based on the increase in real property taxes that the development will create. A portion of that increase in taxes goes to the city's general fund, and a portion is committed to repay bonds that are issued to pay for public infrastructure that's required for the development and makes the development possible. Tax increment financing is used extensively as a redevelopment tool throughout the country for 2 very important reasons. One is it creates new tax revenues to pay for the investment that's being made to make the redevelopment happen. And second, because it's a very valuable incentive to development, but the developer only gets that incentive if they deliver. They have to produce the new taxes for that tax increment financing to be of value to them. The reason why we're requesting a TIF on the Unical property, this is really a wonderful piece of property on the waterfront. It's really ideal property for the type of mixed-use commercial development that's being proposed. And the reason for that is it not only has great views from the property, but it's also very visible off-site, from Providence, from 95. And so this is property that will be very well seen when it's developed and there's lights out there, and it will draw people to this property. And so it's really the ideal property on the waterfront to be this kind of mixed-use property that draws people to the waterfront. But the challenge in developing the property is there's really some extraordinary cost associated with this. That starts with the fact that 100% of this property is within the flood zone. And so at the 100-year flood, it's all underwater. And so to develop the property, it has to be elevated up out of the flood zone. It also requires structured parking because it's not that big of a site, and you can't use all that property for surface parking. You have to build structured parking, but that's much more expensive. There's also a gas line that has to be relocated for the property to be developed. So there's really some extraordinary cost, and the property does not produce enough income to pay not only for the vertical construction, but for those improvements that are required as well. And so that's why the tax increment financing is required for the development. The tax increment financing that's being proposed follows the same model that you've approved for the Kettle Point property. Kettle Point was really the one that broke the ice, and that model allowed the Kettle Point property to go forward. And that same model was then later approved for the Gulf property, and it's the same model that's being approved here for the Unical property. And we think will really be critical in making this property able to be developed and go forward. The next slide just points out the differences with the TIF and without the TIF, and we do always like to think about what's the no-TIF alternative. If you don't do a TIF, what will happen? Well, we know what will happen because the property is set there really for decades without development. The TIF allows the former industrial site to be redeveloped. provides public access, and that's one of the goals of the plan, is to really bring the public. You have the amphitheater, you have public plaza, you'll have restaurants along the water, so it really brings the public to the waterfront. Creates jobs, both construction jobs in the short term and then long-term permanent jobs at the site, creates positive tax revenues to the city, brings new vitality to the waterfront, and allows you to self-fund the improvements required to make this development possible. The next steps at this point in time, the steps that have already been accomplished, is the Waterfront Commission considered the application for the TIF and approved it, unanimous approval. Tonight, we have the first reading of the ordinance. There's no vote required tonight. This is just the first reading. Subsequent to this will be the public hearing, in which case you'll have the opportunity to vote on the proposal. The approval of the TIF allows Chevron to then bring in a developer or co-developer. Chevron's not really a developer itself. It's not a business that it really knows. Its goal is to bring in a local developer, someone who really knows this market, who can then develop the property. But right now, it's not possible to get a developer interested because, quite frankly, a developer can't make money from the development of the property because the cost is so high. So the TIF is really critical in Chevron being able to attract a developer. When that developer comes in, precise plans for the proposed development will be prepared. Those plans will follow the normal process of the city of approving plans, which will include taking those plans back to the Waterfront Commission. At the time that those plans are developed, if we need to update the TIF analysis, we'll do that to reflect those plans. You may recall we did that on Kettle Point. Those plans evolved, and we updated all the TIF analysis to reflect those plans. Before bonds are issued, the developer will have to get the private financing. They'll have to have the plans prepared. They'll have to go through plan review and get permitted, and then the developer will have to go out and get financing. We would not be looking at issuing bonds until the developer actually has financing to go forward with the development, because the bonds are repaid by the tax increment, and the only way to produce that tax increment is to get the additional financing required for the vertical development. So these are the steps as we go forward. And so this is just one of the steps in that process, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes this evening to go over that presentation. We're happy to answer any questions if you have any, but if not, we'll be back soon to talk with you in the second reading of the ordinance.
We do have one question here by Councilman Cahoon.
To the President, if I may. And Dylan, just for clarification, I've got this as first passage. We do need a vote for first passage so that we can move to second passage, correct?
Okay.
So I will support for first passage, but for you, sir, one question, and I understand that you're talking about pending developer, pending bonding, et cetera, et cetera. Can you give us an idea of what the timetable looks like for the project at this point, for prior to second passage at least?
Monty, is that a question you can answer?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I would answer that question. But the real answer is that we don't know the time frame of it. We would think that it would be 2 to 3 years out, but depending on market conditions and the economy, I just can't tell you exactly. We do not have one identified that has a specific timeline.
Okay. I would love any additional information that you can provide come second passage, understanding the crystal ball proviso, given the fact that, we've got the Chevron property already kind of engaged here and et cetera, and it's important for us to kind of understand when these things are going to take seed, for that, and I don't know if there are any further questions.
Back to what Keenan said, though, whenever that happens, whether it's 6 months from now or a year and a half from now, those same provisions for approving the plan and bringing it forward are all going to be requirements anyway. So whether it's right away or whether it's a couple of years, the process is the same.
I understand.
So just a quick follow-up. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, there is going to be something going forward. It's market conditions, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we do have a development in the northern part of the city that's kind of falling apart. So this isn't something where someone can walk away and say it's not going to work.
Well, that's a hard thing to never say never, I guess is the word. But the answer is that there's not risk to the city if that does happen.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Any other further questions from the council?
Just a remark, having been at the Waterfront Commission meeting when this was presented by Unical, it was a long, same presentation, long, detailed discussion going over the bond. Agent was there to answer questions to the commission, and there was a lot of safety net for the city in case there was something that were to occur, similar to down at Kettle Point. So I know that the Waterfront Commission, they were moved to approve this TIF to the council. They were comfortable with it, and I thought it was a great presentation also, and it felt good and safe, and I propose to pass on first passage. I make a motion to approve.
All right, this is first passage. It's not a public hearing. We have a motion on the floor for first passage for approval. Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
We have a second on that. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
when we
Close out.
contemplate continuing the remainder of the agenda items, I would request that it be to a date certain. So if we can pick the time or place to have this meeting,
Can we continue at the next council meeting?
you may.
I mean, if that's what the council chooses.
Our next council meeting, if I'm not mistaken, is November 5th. Is that good? That's in three weeks.
Could I ask the city clerk, do you have an advanced agenda already, or are we overloaded, or does it look okay?
As of right now, there's one thing that's on the agenda. It should take about 5 minutes. Other than that, we don't have anything else.
So if we try not to put much more on it and transfer most of this agenda, would probably be
Yeah, you guys
advisable.
would be fine.
May I just ask that somebody check in with the school department, make sure that the invoice payment is going to take until then, because 3 weeks, I'm guessing, is going to put us over 30 days.
What you want?
Can I just make a motion or a suggestion to the council? The month of October has 5 weeks, so the 29th isn't the final Tuesday of the month. I would recommend maybe having a special meeting on the 29th of October, since the
To
chambers
continue
are
this
probably
meeting
to
here?
continue this meeting.
So,
There shouldn't be a school committee meeting or any other meetings that I'm aware of.
So to that end, may I move to continue the remaining items on this docket until 6:30 PM on 29 October?
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Next special council meeting will be on October 29th at 6:30 PM to continue this docket that we have at this time. Would anyone like to make a motion to close the current, to adjourn, I should say, to adjourn from the regular city council meeting docket and proceed into the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that brings us back to the docket. Excuse me, that brings us back to the budget here.
And we had left off, we had just completed the tax assessor's office, unless I'm incorrect.
No,
Tax
I think
collector,
that's the
sorry.
next. We completed the tax collectors on page 31, section 270, and we agreed on an amount of $563,121.
Yes.
And now we're going to proceed onto page 33, section 290, tax assessment.
Mr. Council President, if I may, I should have said this earlier. Can we just go over the housekeeping rules real quick?
Yes.
So we can finish this?
Well, I mean, if you want to go through what you had mentioned earlier, I'm in total support of that, so we could proceed and
I
go right on
appreciate
through.
that. I also
Sure.
have a running log. We need Malcolm back, but I also have a running log as to what we did and discussed from the last meeting, if that will help at all. This sheet that was just presented to us, I don't know how much help this gives us. There's no bottom line for each department. I appreciate that he put each item discussed, but
And I don't have the time, we don't have the time to
correct.
review these numbers as well at this point.
So I did
on the
ask
11th hour.
the finance director, when he presented this just now, to sum up the departments with the bottom line number, so that would be presented, and I'm assuming that's why he's currently not present.
okay. For this tax assessment, 290, I don't believe we had any proposed cuts on any of those line items. I have a total of 474, 472, 407 as proposed.
It's a public hearing, right? So
Okay, so we'll,
Tax assessor?
Malcolm's in the little boys' room. We'll just hold off for a moment. If anyone from the public would like to comment at this point in time, again, we're on page 33, 290. You're more than welcome to step up to the podium for or against the tax assessment's office.
The budget proposed is 472,407, and there have been no changes made.
no changes, no additions, no deletions, so
I make a motion.
we can wait for Malcolm, or we may not have to if there's no changes.
Council, you have no changes?
Changes.
I have no changes in this department.
Okay. So will we be able to proceed without Malcolm, considering that we could just tell him there's no changes in the department?
Yeah, I believe
All right,
the
so
solicitor
anyone
says so.
would like to make a motion?
Mr. President, I'll move that the tax assessment bottom line number be approved at $472,407.
Would anyone like to make a motion on that?
You just said
Second that
Second.
motion, I'm sorry. Okay. Roll call vote, Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you.
It's 5-0. There we go. Okay.
Here they come, so. Mr. Moore, just so you know, we had a vote on page 33, section 290, tax assessment, and that budget is to remain as is. It was a 5-0 vote for $472,407. No change in that budget.
Okay.
Okay? We are now proceeding on to the next page, which is 35, section 400, human resources. Again, this is a public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this budget, please step up to the podium. I'll announce it one more time, and then I'll close public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this proposed budget, please step up to the podium. With no one coming forward, I close public comment for human resources at this time. At the pleasure of the council.
So we had no proposed deduction, no proposed increases, no advertised increases. We're only dealing with deductions on this budget.
The number I have from our discussion on this department was we ended up before correction 730,997, and I see that as different from what was just presented. That I'm assuming that 15.5 was the overall cuts, correct, Malcolm?
Correct.
So that's, you had a number of $730,997?
Correct.
Okay.
And some of the line items that we discussed was professional development. I have it from, we reduced that $10,000, I believe, to $6,500, or we reduced $6,500 off to 10.
Okay. Any further discussion from the council?
Like I had mentioned at the beginning, I'm looking to do some cost savings, and overall, I'm proposing that the budget for the HR department be 707,997. 997.
I will second that.
Is that
That's an emotion.
well, Any further discussion?
So what, is there additional cuts to the 15,500?
Just the bottom line, correct?
The bottom line number, what the department head, how he decides to allocate his funds is entirely up to himself.
That would be essentially an additional cut of about 25K, just rough numbers, right?
Yeah. Correct. Again, I'm going to reiterate, the city needs to cut the budget to make the numbers work for the taxpayers, and I'll just keep saying it over and over again. It's at the pleasure of the council what they decide to do. I will not support a budget that does not have a reduction in the tax.
Council President.
Okay. Well, Mayor, I think public comment is closed at this time.
Public comments closed?
Yes.
This is a new change that no one's gotten a chance to speak on.
I opened up the floor for public comment.
No, but she's just adding additional cuts that no one had a chance to speak on.
Okay.
So my understanding of a budget, of a city budget, is that discretionary spending is minimal. Most of the spending is based on salaries, contractual obligations, and other important items to the development of our employees and to the well-being of our city services. But I think the councilwoman is proposing another $40,000 in cuts.
20, I believe it was.
So
$25,000 in cuts. But if you look at this budget, and you guys looked at it carefully in previous meetings, line by line by line, and really digested each line, and today to just throw in another $25,000 cut without really any real analysis, I think is difficult, and it's going to cause operational problems in a very important department, which is human resources. And as we stated before, human resources is there to help us prevent risk, lawsuits, and things of that nature.
If I may, through the chair, I think this council has done an excellent job in going about this budget to the point where it's been unprecedented, where we took line by line and we did our due diligence.
I didn't dispute that.
We could have easily just taken this budget, given it back and say, you know what, we need another $2 million cut off. And you figure out where you want the $2 million cut. And we didn't do that. So, you know, to our credit, we went through each line item. And now we're discovering that we're not done yet. We still need more cuts. So there's nothing wrong with cutting off the bottom line. Nothing. So, and if we're going to keep continuing this way tonight, we're going to be here all night. Well, we are not getting through this.
Thank you. So, is that in the form of a motion, Councilwoman? $707,997.
I
Yes, sir.
second that motion.
And we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Can I ask, what was that number again? Was it 707?
707 997. Okay. Moving right along to page 37, section 170, information technology. That's page 37, section 170. So what I'm going to do is open up the floor for council discussion first with any changes, and then I'll open up the floor, I should say, with the public hearing, because it'll be based on that final number that we come up with.
So we have no proposed, again, no advertised increases. We're only looking at the reductions to this budget.
Correct. If I can make a proposal, I'd like to propose an additional $45,000 out of the bottom line to this department.
That will be...
In addition, I just want to make no 2% increase to the salary.
So is it fair to say across the board, or do we have to say for each department? I think that was the general census, if I'm not mistaken.
I just want to make sure
So,
that it doesn't
right.
get missed, just for, Malcolm's understanding.
So, Councilman Morato, you have right now $903,842, if my math serves me correctly.
I have, you say 912,423?
903,842.
Actually, I have 912,423.
You said 40,000, right?
I have to take out 45, correct?
Oh, 45. Give me that number again, please. I'm sorry.
The number that we had from the previous discussion on this department was 912,423. Propose an additional 45, and I'm willing to hear how the rest of council feels about that number.
Mr. President, my only question is maybe procedure. As you said, Councilman Murata, we painstakingly had, was it 5 budget hearings, I believe? 4 of them we were here past 11 p.m. And we did go, and I think the council and department heads and mayor's office all made presentations and put in a good effort. But we did make line-by-line decisions and discussions, but now, we're saying we're just going to additionally cut from the bottom, which I can live with, but don't we have an obligation to say where or suggest where? That's what we have been doing.
I'm fine with that.
I'm just saying now all of a sudden to say, okay, in addition to what we talked about for the past week and a half or so, we're going to lop off another 20 or 40 or 50. That's okay, we might, but shouldn't we have to say what's giving us that thought? Or from what area? I mean, that's what we've been doing now.
With this department, the way I feel about this is that presentation that was given, I was under the impression that the previous council had allocated money towards technologies, and the impression that I was under that those technologies weren't exactly updated. So we had a backlog of 30 plus or whatever thousands of dollars that were allocated to those updates. They weren't done for whatever reason. And now they're coming back and they want additional money for more updates. Well, where's the money that was previously allocated?
So what I would like you to say is, or any of us to say, is that's where we want to take additional cuts.
That would satisfy the council.
Not just.
I was looking at the 170 for those additional cuts.
I mean, I think that the staff or whomever has to implement what we do needs to have an idea what we're talking about. What area?
That's fair. So with that said, the reasoning for that 45 was from that line item 57309, which is from that 170.
Are you in the main book? No.
Correct. Page 37.
Yeah. So we had discussed reducing that from 170 to 145. Your proposal would reduce that from 145 to 100.
Correct.
Is that right?
And I'm, open to hearing. And if the council wants to keep that line item the same as what we previously discussed, so be it. But
well, at least I like that better as a description.
Correct.
So it's some direction.
And again, that brings the bottom number to $912.423. Just to reconfirm.
No, that would be reducing 45 from 912, 423.
Oh, 45 from 912.
So can we start with just, Malcolm, the number that we had coming in on this budget, leading up from our prior discussions? Where were we coming into tonight?
Right, and there was a little bit more of a reduction because if you look at the sheet I gave you, there's MERS and FICA. So the revised number was 911,724.
$911,724 was the number that we were at. That's
Right.
the number before Councilman Murata
That is
proposed
correct.
45.
If you look at, the first page of what I handed you, that's the mayor's budget minus the 37,118.
So what are those additional pay increases total to? For those other line items?
Well, the 2% was 2419, I think. And then on that, you had to reduce the pension for 514, and then the FICA for 185.
All right, so that's not a lot.
Right. Well, yes, but that's,
One salary.
if we're trying to be exact, those are the numbers.
Has a motion been made?
No. We're having discussions still.
So I'm in support of that number, 866,724. Yes.
Is that in the form of a motion, Councilwoman?
I do make that motion.
Okay, so the Councilwoman has a motion on the floor.
Second that.
For passage of a total budget of $866,724. We have a motion, is seconded by Councilman Murata. Roll call vote, please.
Just to clarify the motion, so again, what line item are you? talking about?
57309, which would be computer hardware / electrical.
Okay.
All set.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Oh, excuse me, this is a public hearing. Anyone choosing to speak for or against this, please step up to the podium. If not, I will be closing this public hearing. Public hearing is closed at this time. Proceeding right on to page 39, section 900, miscellaneous. And again, this is a public hearing, so I'll allow the council to have their discussion before I ask the public to come speak for or against the proposed budget.
So in this budget, we had potential increase of $15,000 for line item 52108, the East Bay Community Action Program, which had been reduced by the mayor's proposal to $15,000. The council did advertise it at the full 30, pending a further discussion, with the intent to either bring it back to the 30, keep it at the 15, or further reduce it if so wished. And then we did have some other cuts and made a difference of $95,000 in reductions to this department.
Yes, according to my records, I do have some cuts in professional services, and again, this is just mine, from $100,000 to $50,000. We
removed that.
We were to transfer the legal. I'm sorry.
We transferred that, correct?
I'm sorry. Transfer that. You're absolutely right. In addition to transferring 75 out of 200 for legal services, and I wouldn't mind East Bay Community Action to compromise to get 20,000.
I agree with
as opposed to the
increase.
proposed 15,000, and it was cut from 30,000.
I agree with that increase, Council President.
So I'm looking, my total, if it's correct, 6513,256.
Any further? I'm sorry, Malcolm?
Got the number being, because I go from 6,783,000 down to 6,688,000
My numbers are not.
with the two transfers, 75,000, 50,000, and the two increases, 15,000 grant matching fee and 15,000 for East Bay.
There's two.
That was
transfers of
24 East Bay.
Excuse me?
That was 20 for East Bay.
That was 24?
20.
20?
You said 15.
Right,
Yes.
you're proposing that they go up
I'm
to 20,
proposing to.
right? So that would actually be a reduction, that would actually be an increase of 5, not a reduction of 15. I mean, an increase of 5, not an increase of 15.
Right.
Malcolm, you mentioned 75 and 50, 75, 50, and 50, correct? So 100 and
125. 75,000 of legal services was transferred to the council, and also 50,000 of professional service.
And then was there an additional 50,000 at the last special, at that Wednesday meeting from the 200 line item, the 58206? Was that,
There was
am I mistaken? Oh, no.
I have a mark for a negative 50K on that too.
Was that what the other 50 was taken and moved to the council side?
Could have been.
For claims and settlements?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm asking. The number I have was 676,708,256. before the increase of the 5 to the East Bay Community Action. That seems very low, yes. 6.5.
So hold on, hang on one second. Let's just do it line by line real quick. We had an increase of 5,000 to the East Bay line from the proposed 15 to 20, right? We deduct 100K from this department for legal services from 200 to 100 because we moved that, right?
100 or 75?
Oh, I'm sorry, 75, pardon. So we take from 200 to 125, deduct by 75, right? So we're down by 70 at this point. Professional services, we moved 50K out of that to the council line. Yes? For the,
Yes.
right? So we're down by 120, and I'm not tracking any additional reductions.
Neither am I.
There was one increase, I believe, for
Grant
matching.
Grant matching fees of
15, went up 15.
went up 15.
So that brings the net difference to minus 105.
Grant matching fees went up from 20,
Yes.
25 to what again? I'm sorry.
To 40.
To 40.
I didn't have that.
So what's the total for that department, Malcolm, if you don't mind?
So I track 678, 256, unless I missed.
That's what I've got.
678, 256?
$6,678,256.
66282.56. No. Yep.
$6,678,256.
Oh, 78. Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes.
therefore I would move the approval of the new number in the 900 miscellaneous series to $6,678,256.
And I'll second.
Can we just double check that, please? Is that accurate?
So before we vote and solidify the vote, before we have solidified the vote, I would just like to have an opportunity for the public, given the fact that they do know what the bottom line is. So this is public comment. Once again, anybody from the public choosing to step up to the podium, speak for or against the proposed budget, please do so now. Again, I would repeat that again, and only one more time, is anyone from the public choosing to speak up to the public, come up to the podium, speaking for or against this proposed budget, please do so now, or public comment will be closed. Public comment is closed at this point in time. And now at the council's pleasure of finalizing the number, and it appears that right now, it's $6,678,256.
I double checked,
Any-
Mr. Murato, I came up with the same number. I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay.
President.
You're all set? Okay. Any objections from the council at this time?
So I think my number I'm getting from was the claims and settlement, the currently budget for $200,000. Historically, we've been under 110 for claims. So I was looking to reduce it by at least another 50,000, giving them well over what we have been allocating on a yearly basis, so leaving 150 in the settlements and claims. That would bring the total.
So you're saying reduce from 200,000 to 150,000?
So that's 25,000 less.
50,000 less. What?
An additional 50,000.
Okay.
50,000 less.
Bless you. That would,
One more second.
that would bring the number to 6,628,256.
So I would have to withdraw my motion.
Correct.
282.
I second that motion, if that's what we're doing.
Two moments.
I was waiting for the councilman to see if he wanted to withdraw his motion or if we wanted to.
I'll withdraw, and we need the second to be withdrawn.
Are you all set with that number?
Sure.
You can,
Take it
yeah.
back. It's gone.
Start over, it's gone.
So
Okay.
in the budget miscellaneous 900, section 900, I am proposing a budget of $6,628,256.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion on the floor for approval of $6,628,256, seconded by Councilman Rodericks. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next page, page 41, section 905, debt service. Page 41, 905. Thank you.
So in our discussions earlier, we had removed the 2017 TIF bond line of $818,750. I think the outstanding question is, what is the actual, so we remove $818,750 from that overall line, taking us down to $604,941. I think I have a question, Mr. President, as to, is there a corresponding revenue going into the general fund with that line?
Yes,
And what is the amount of that corresponding revenue?
it'd be like amount.
It would be the same amount.
What should happen, and the mayor had asked me to write a quick memo on two of these. The way it works is, it's pretty complicated. We've got the bond book here that tells you all about it if you need to know anything about it. But
I'll
For
take
the-
that bond book.
for the bond covenants, they set up all kinds of little funds when the money comes in. You've got the project fund, you've got cost of issuance, you've got administration, there's all these little funds. So for record keeping, most places, you'll separate that into a separate fund, and what you need to do is bring in just enough revenue to cover the debt service, and then any additional amount would be rolled back into the general fund. Now, it's a little more complicated. When we first came in, there was a floor, so that goes to the general fund. Then 70% of the balance would go towards this to a cap, and anything else would roll back in. But simplistically, if you've got $818,000 of expense, then you would have $818,000 of revenue that would cover it. So for the general fund, it's a wash because I'm taking the same amount of revenue and expense.
So it would not impact the overall requested tax levy?
That is correct. And one thing about the TIF bond is that it does not count against your 4% cap that you have a max per the state law.
So what is that? So what do you do with that money?
The additional money will roll back into the general fund. My other example is the police detail. So under police detail, we had revenue of 1.7. In the police budget, we had expense of 1.2. So I'm going to move the 1.2 expense over and the 1.2 of revenue. So the only thing you'll see in the budget now is police revenue, $500,000. So you'll just see the revenue item, because if you show it in the budget, it gets to be a little tricky, because the police department is really that's not under their jurisdiction. I mean, when they call it in, they use it. So, a lot of times they'll come in and say, why are you over budget on that? And then they got to go through, well, we've got offsetting revenue, and it depends on the construction season and all. And so other communities do it that way, just to set it up to where it's segregated, and whatever expenses you have, we'll have revenue to cover that. And then any overage would be budgeted on the city side, which was proposed. Anyway, on the TIF bond.
So while we would reduce the overall department number, as we spoke about previously, we would not count that as, per se, cuts, because that would not impact the total tax levy.
Correct.
So that being said, I move to approve the revised number. And Malcolm, did I have the right number? I did that math scratch. I had $6,049,841.
That was discussed at the last meeting, Councilman.
So then I move to approve the debt service amount for FY20 of $6,049,841.
So before we make a motion for approval, this is a public hearing. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak for or against the debt service, please come to the podium. Again, anyone from the public wishing to speak for or against the debt service podium, please approach the podium. If not, public comment is closed at this time. Thank you. So, Councilman, is that in the form of a motion?
It was.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
And we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Would you like to, at the pleasure of the council again, would you like to continue on through the capital budget recommendations and on to the department heads? Or
May I make a recommendation?
Yes.
So my understanding of the capital budget is the capital budget will not impact the capital budget that we have allocated in here tonight will not impact the overall tax levy, correct? Correct. So accordingly, it will not impact the number that we need to put in the ordinance at the end of the night, correct?
Correct.
So I would recommend that we stick to those things that will impact that number first and come back and hit capital later.
Okay, very good, Councilman. With that being said, we can proceed over to page 51, section 300, Planning Department. If I missed a page, please let me know. Doesn't appear that I did, so we are on page 51, section 300, Planning Department.
The only line that I had tracked that we identified there was the reduction in the medical insurance line. I think we were estimating a number. So, Malcolm, I don't know if you've got a more updated number.
Yes, $15,578.
And that's what I have as well, and that was the only line item that I had.
Oh, you did that on the fly last time. I'm sorry. I remember.
So what was the overall number for that department? I have 785,227.
796.
That's correct.
That's what I have.
Minus 15,578. You have 785 or 780? I have
780,000.
Yes, that's what I have. Okay, I did 785. Any other further questions from the council at this point in time? What it appears?
None.
It's 780,527. Again, this is public comment. Anyone wishing to choose to speak for or against this decrease, please approach the podium. Again, this is the Planning Department on page 51, section 300. Anyone from the public choosing to speak for or against this budget, please approach the podium. Doesn't appear that anyone's going to be approaching at this time. Public comment is closed. Would anyone like to make a motion for the 780,527?
Mr. President, so move 780,527.
Thank you, Councilman. We have a motion on the floor. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Moving right along to page 53. That is section 800. Page 53, section 800, Recreation. If I'm not mistaken, we didn't touch this budget.
Correct.
Council President? Can I
Yes.
just reiterate again, I don't think our numbers that we're doing are necessarily accurate. I don't see where we're putting in each department not getting the 2% across the board. The numbers that were our totals presented had the 2% in them.
Dependent upon the department. Did this department, Mr. Moore, Recreation, have the 2% increase?
It would be, well, I think planning was the one that we just
Oh,
finished.
well, let's go back to
And
planning
I don't
on
think
that.
planning did.
The planning was not budgeted for 2%.
Okay, all right.
And IT, we did.
So, recreation,
There was 2% budgeted in this. When this was discussed, this topic was not brought up about reducing.
So I don't have any changes, I don't think, to this.
Do we need to investigate, Mr. Roderick, to your point, you were kind of hammering this home, the use of the recreation fund that's established for recreation department expenses? I believe we're of the impression that that fund is somewhere in the realm of about $67K in terms of balance. I know we had discussions on fireworks and a couple other items. I don't know if the council wants to entertain any further discussion along those lines, given that that is the balance for that department.
that is the balance at this point in time going forward with the extension of the Live Nation lease. We're looking at approximately another, hopefully, 15 to 20,000 to be allocated for this budget as well. I know it's next year, but
I know,
would you like
I'm
to
sorry.
proceed? No, go ahead.
Malcolm, we haven't spent any of that yet, correct? I think you said it was being saved,
Yes.
which is not a bad thing, to this point. So it's about 67,000. There may be one more deposit, I believe. It may not be, but we were told there might be. So we're in an area of $70,000 anyway. So, and I've talked to the mayor's office about this too, and I mean, it is earmarked for recreation at some point in parks. I think what I'd like to see, and Councilman Cahoon is, I think we've all suggested, it should be in the budget, not now, but, next year, not as a budget item, but even a separate page, other accounts that we have. And then maybe we could bring down some of the budget costs by using that money for recreation or parks. I mean, $70,000 is pretty substantial for doing some of the projects we want to do at Pierce Stadium. As long as it's done one way or another. But, until this process, we didn't know we had that money. Council President Brito brought it up, and so did Councilwoman Souza. They were here last council, and I guess we're aware somewhat, but maybe not of the total, and not of the process to use it. And I think, Director Moore, you had indicated there really wasn't a clear process yet. It's kind of new. I don't know if it is something that would have to come before the council. I think it does not have to.
I would think that would probably fall under the $50,000 threshold as far as what would have to come to the council.
So I don't know what I'm suggesting other than, we need to have an awareness that that money is there.
Well, Councilman, I'm going to make the request again, and I made this last Friday at the workshop hearing. Unfortunately, Mr. Moore, you weren't present at the time. However, Mr. Luber was, but I had requested if we can get some type of accounting statement with just those accounts that are out there that we don't have a balance of, in writing, that is. So you did allude to it last time. You talked about the Live Nation money that was given. You talked about Winterfest, and I think there was another account that you
There's
talked
a
about.
handful on the balance sheet I can provide you with.
Right.
So maybe, Councilman Cahoon, we could put it as an agenda item for another meeting and discuss all of these other accounts in that specific Live Nation account and come up with a process.
So just getting back to the actual budget itself, we had no movement, although we did have discussion on this budget. What is the pleasure of the council at this point in time?
Well, I move to approve the budget as presented,
Okay.
541,633.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Souza to keep the budget as is, $541,633. So before we go for a second on that motion, I'm going to open up to the public. Anyone from the public wishing or choosing to speak for or against this, please step up to the podium. I'll ask the question one more time. Ms. Rossi, please step up. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to advocate for approving the budget, as Councilwoman Souza just suggested. A vibrant recreation department certainly enhances the marketability of our city. And it's not a huge budget to begin with, and they really do stretch it. So I just wanted to give a little rah-rah for my rec department. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor at this point in time for approval of the $541,633 for the rec department. Can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
I have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Next page. Page 55, Section 801. Page 55, Section 801, Pierce Stadium.
Council President, there were no decreases or increases on this department also. None. No increases and decreases.
I didn't have any movement on this as well.
Move to approve the proposed budget for Pierce Stadium, line 801, $76,500.
So before we get a second, this again is a public hearing. Anyone from the public willing to speak for or against this budget, please step up to the podium. I'll repeat myself one more time, and I'll close public comment. Anyone willing to speak for or against this budget, please step up to the podium. With no one coming forth, I close the public hearing at this time. We have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon.
Second.
To approve the $76,500, seconded by Councilman Rodrick. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, 57, Section 850, the carousel. That is page 57, Section 850.
This was another department, Council President, that we did not increase or decrease the proposed budget of $163,477.
That's open for the council for discussion. Does the council have any discussion at this point in time? So we're looking to have the proposed budget remain as is, $163,477. If that's clear, I'm going to open up the floor for public comment. Anyone from the public willing to speak for or against this, please, Jessica, step up to the podium.
I just have a question regarding these awesome things that you guys have going on that are going to be maybe being built at the carousel that's under the Capitol. And I'm just curious, we only have one person working there under the budget.
If I'm not mistaken, under the proposed budget is 11 part-time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. So would those part-time people be taken care of? Because the part-time people right now are summer people. They're usually high school kids or college kids.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, if the ice skating rink goes forward, they won't be that cheap, I don't think. But it's just curious. It's just something I'm questioning. Not wondering if you guys have thought about it.
I don't have an answer to that. It's
Okay.
part of the reason I want more discussion on
Okay.
those particular items.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone willing to speak for or against this proposal, please step up to the podium. If you'd like to come up and speak.
Yeah, just on this right now.
No. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I could answer that.
Yes, you can.
The proposals in the capital improvement actually wouldn't take place until the following budget. However, it would just be additional part-timers for next year's budget. So there's no, with the projects that are happening, there's no additional staff for this season.
Thank you. Hope that answers your question, Jessica. Any other person willing to speak for or against this proposal? If not, I'm going to close public comment. As it stands right now, we have a motion on the floor to accept the $163,000, $477. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
You have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza? Aye. Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
And Council President Brito?
Aye, thank you. Next item, page 5959, section 550, the library. Before we open up the discussion for public comment does anyone in the council have any discussion at this point in time?
Malcolm, is there a 2% increase in this department?
I believe that's contractual.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
I had no changes on this in this department. I don't know if anybody else did.
No change.
Okay. So what it looks like, the proposed budget for $2,486,343 will remain as is. This is now open for public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this, please step up to the podium. I'll ask the question one more time before I close public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against the library proposed budget, please step up to the podium. Okay, public comment is closed. Would anyone like to make that a motion?
Move to approve the library budget of $2,486,343 for FY20.
Thank you, Councilman. And thank you, Councilwoman. We have a motion on the floor. We had a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza?
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
And Council President Brito?
Aye, thank you. Page 61, section 155, senior services. Currently, we have a proposed budget of $323,878. The only proposal that I've seen in here that we had discussed about eliminating was the travel for $500. I don't know if that was going to go back in or how. Is that correct? Okay.
And all the budget, all the salaries are contractual, Malcolm?
Yes.
So before I open this up for public comment, it looks like that reduction now will be $323,378. Any objections to that from the council at this time?
None.
Okay. Public comment is now open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this proposed budget, please step up to the podium. I'll ask the question one more time. Anyone willing to speak for or against this proposed budget, please step up to the podium. Okay. Public comment is closed at this time.
Mr. President, I would move approval of senior services proposed budget, item 155, in the amount of $323,378.
We have a motion on the floor. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon?
Aye.
Councilman Morato?
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza?
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick?
Aye.
And Council President Brito?
Aye, thank you.